Second kind of plank of Jensen's strategy is intentionally defective grantor trust. Peter, you want to give the overview here?
Yeah. So intentionally defective grantor trusts, basically they're a type of trust that usually you use to use up your gift and estate exemption amount. And so right now that's $13.99 million. Back in 2012, when Jensen and his wife made these gifts, it was lower than that. But yeah, around 5.5 million, I think. But yeah, so the idea is that you transfer assets to the trust. The trust is a disregarded taxpayer for income tax purposes, but not for gift and estate tax purposes. So you transfer the assets. The assets are outside of your estate. And so any appreciation is outside of your estate. So if you transfer, let's say, $10 million to intentionally defective grantor trust, and say it has an NVIDIA stock, and the value of that stock grows, that $10 million might end up being worth $1 billion after 3,000% or 5,000% appreciation. You can really transfer a lot of assets that way. The other big benefit, there's a few, the other big benefit of intentionally defective grantor trust is that because you're allowed to pay the taxes without those tax payments being considered gifts, you can essentially transfer millions more to your children without using any gift tax exemption. And so in Jensen's case, he has tens of millions of shares in NVIDIA in these intentionally defective grantor trusts that he created in 2012, I think. And those shares are throwing off dividends. NVIDIA doesn't pay a huge dividend, but when you have tens of millions of shares in these trusts, the dividends are still pretty substantial. And so the dividend income on those shares throw off. Those taxes are actually paid by Jensen, not his kids, not their trusts. And so every year, Jensen's making he's probably paying tens of millions of dollars of taxes on these shares. And those tax payments are considered gifts. So that's.
Yeah. And it's Peter's talking about it. It's a really impactful piece. Another way to state this is you have this lifetime exemption of how much you can gift to your kids, future generations. But critically with IDGTs, you can gift them that $14 million, but that if you sell your NVIDIA stock appreciates to $1 billion and you pay, and then you sell that and there's taxes due on that, instead of your kids or the trust paying those taxes, you do. And the impact of that is if you're worried about the estate tax, it means that you lower the size of your estate and the future estate taxes you will owe. But it also means that your kids or the trust, they stay whole on the sale. They get to essentially grow tax-free because you're paying the taxes. And all that growth happens outside of your estate, free of gift and estate taxes and using up your lifetime exemption. And so this is where that compounding and the duality of the assets grow tax-free outside of your estate and then the size of your estate grows smaller really creates a powerful, it makes these intentionally defective grantor trusts known as IDGTs, makes them potentially the most powerful way to avoid gift and estate taxes if you are over the exemption, if you're significantly over the exemption. Is that kind of fair, Peter?
Yeah. And the other thing is oftentimes the way these trusts get assets is not from making direct gifts to them, but rather from naming them as the remainder beneficiaries of a grat. And so in this case, I think a lot of these IDGTs got their assets actually from the grats that Jensen and his wife have been setting up over time. And so the idea is that instead of naming your kids individually as beneficiaries of the trust, the grat, you can name these trusts as beneficiaries.
Yeah. And this is exactly. It's a great thing to call out is you can stack these things on top. We talked about the benefits. We're talking about them in isolation because it's just to help you guys understand the basics, how they work, but you can stack these things on top of each other.